What's up? How you guys doing? You're doing good. Come on. Anybody else feel like her? There it is. There it is. Hey, before we get going too much further, I got a couple announcements I want to hit on real quick. The first one is everyone say next week. Next week we are having our Halloween party. We're doing a costume contest. We're also continuing our series Mind Game, and it's going to be just an awesome night. You're not going to want to miss it. We're going to play tug of war. It's just going to be a lot of fun. So make sure you show up. We got candy for you guys, and that's happening next Wednesday night in play during our service. The other announcement I want to hit on is the Pumpkin Patch. The Pumpkin Patch is the 29th. That's next Friday, I believe. Not this coming one, but the following Friday. We're going to be going to the corn maze. And so it's only $5 to get in per person. The only thing that you need is there's some orange invite cards that we have out on the table right outside these doors. So make sure you grab one of those. Take it with you, because if you want to get in for $5 instead of the $12, you just need that card to show that you are kind of a part of our church. They're giving our church a deal. And then the final announcement I got is, who loves Christmas in here? Yeah. So, man, coming up, we have a Christmas production here at the church. And so what I've been asked to do is actually gather some students who want to be a part of it. So there's kind of a couple things that we need. We need some people who would become actors. Now, actors, that you don't really have any lines or roles beyond standing up here and acting out the story of Christmas. And you would be in kind of like some LED tape costume, right? So if you are interested in being a part of that, you need to let me know after service. Actually, you know what? Everybody get out your phones real quick. If you don't have my number, I'm going to give it to you. I'm going to need you to text me so I know who wants to be a part of it. My number is 303-917-2064. Text me your name and let me know that you want to be a part of that. The other thing is, maybe you dance. If you dance and you want to be a part of it, yeah, you just got hit. So I think you're signed up, okay? So if you dance and you want to be a part of it, there's 2 songs in the production that are kind of like choreographed dances, I guess. And so we have some YouTube videos that teach you how to do those dances that we will send you if you're interested in being a part of that dance team. The Sunday that you're committing to be a part of both services is December 12th, and we'll have one practice kind of during the week for sure for everybody to get together for the dancers. And then as far as the actors go, our admin, Amanda, will be in contact with you this week. And so just text me, 303-917-2064, if you want to be a part of either the dancing portion of it or the acting portion. We would love for you guys to all be a part of it, and really there's no limit on how many people we could have a part of it. Yes?
What if you don't have a phone?
If you don't have a phone, just find me after service.
Okay.
Yep, find me after service, or find a leader after service, and they can text me your name and what you're interested in. We are in a series called Mind Game. And before I get started, does anybody want my Bible to take notes in tonight? Yes, come on, right here. I give out my Bible each week. I apologize, I did not mark the passages, so you'll just have to find them, okay? But each week I try to mark the passages that we preach from, and then you guys can take notes and write down some thoughts or ideas that stick out to you. I love looking back at them, because I love that even though I prepare a message and there's some things that I feel like, hey man, God is going to really hit on this tonight, there's some different takeaways that we all get out of the message. And so I want to encourage you guys to take notes, to be note takers, because even if the message doesn't necessarily pertain to you this evening, it doesn't mean that it won't pertain to you in the future. So we've been in the series Mind Game, and man, it's been a lot of fun. Anybody enjoyed it so far? Good, I have. And we're continuing tonight. The main premise, the main hope out of this series is this right here. I want you to live with peace of mind rather than your mind in pieces. We've been talking about different emotions or different mindsets that we all kind of fall into. Things that, if we're honest, we don't love talking about. Things that we feel like we're struggling alone in. Things like the first week we talked about anxiety. We talked about how the anxiety is rooted in a me-centric idea, a me mindset. And then last week talked about anger, and how our anger, man, there's a righteous anger, but man, there's also a way that we need to control our anger and not allow it to control us. And tonight, man, we are continuing our series. We're going to be talking about a different emotion. I'll get to that in just a second. But anybody in here, just by making some noise, you love scary movies? Okay, all right. Anybody in here, you love haunted houses? Okay. I don't like either. I'm just going to be completely honest. Yeah, anybody not like either? Yeah, my people. I didn't always be that way. Like you see, for a while, I didn't like it. I wasn't allowed to participate in them. I always felt like I was missing out on something. I was raised in a pastor's home, and so my mom, that's like stereotypical Christian moms. I'm just gonna be completely honest. Like I wasn't allowed to watch Harry Potter, right? Like I know I did eventually because my dad was like, "Listen, this is dumb. If your parents don't let you watch Harry Potter, I apologize. It's not dumb. I support their decision because I support parents' decisions." So, but yeah, I was raised in a Christian home, so I wasn't allowed to like watch Harry Potter. I wasn't allowed to go to like my friend's house unless my mom talked to the person's mom beforehand. Like all those like stereotypical things, right? So scary movies kind of fell into this category. My mom always would tell me, she's like, "No, you're not watching that movie. It's rated PG-13 and you're 12. Okay, Mom, thank you. Or, hey, you're not watching that movie, you're only 15 and it's rated R, right? I would ask her all the time, like, "Hey, can I please go see it?" She'd be like, "No." So there was this one time when I was in 8th grade, I was invited to one of my friend's birthday parties. It was a sleepover. So my mom's like, once again, I told you, she had to call my friend's mom and be like, "Hey, what's the plan for the night? What are they doing?" And so we had made this plan that we were going to hang out at his house. We were going to go see a movie, but we didn't tell his mom what that movie was, right? And we weren't 18, so we couldn't have really gone to see this movie. So we bought tickets for a different movie that was at the same time and went to the theater of the movie we wanted to see. And this movie, and I'm not endorsing it by any means, it's called Strangers.
Oh, that's a good movie.
Oh, okay. Thank you. So I had never seen a scary movie before this. Let me just preface by saying that. Never watched a scary movie. The scariest movie was probably like Lion King, right? Wow. So like before this, I was kind of this sheltered 8th grader, like growing up on VeggieTales and Bible Man and Disney. Like that was my childhood. And so I'm here at this birthday party, and we decide, hey, we are going to sneak into the movie Strangers. So we go, we watch it. His mom picks us up. We go back to his house. We spend the evening, like, we're all fine, right? Because we're all together. Well, the next day, my mom comes, picks me up in the morning, and her and my dad had plans later that evening. So me being in 8th grade, I have 2 younger siblings, that she decides, hey, you're going to watch your siblings today. Fine, cool. So I begin watching my siblings, and a little bit of a while goes by, and it starts getting later in the evening, and it starts getting dark out, right? And I start thinking, like, where are my parents at? Where are my mom and dad at? They should be home by now. My brother and sister are in bed. Here I am sitting up all alone. You know what happens? I begin to hear noises. Now, the thing that I hated about scary movies is, especially like as I started getting more into them, right? I hated the things that were real. Like these things could actually happen, right? And this was one of those movies. It's like, imagine you're in a cabin in the woods and a group of people come there to murder you. That's what happened in this movie. And so here I am sitting up late at night, and I start hearing noises. My parents aren't home. They're like, you're in charge of your siblings. You're supposed to protect them and take care of them in case anybody breaks in. Little did they know, I just watched a movie about people breaking in and trying to kill me. So these noises start happening. I start hearing wrestling outside, and I start freaking out. So I run to my garage, and I grab a bat, right? I'm like, I'm going to defend my house, right? I had the Home Alone moment. And so yes, thank you. So I start like grabbing the bat and making my way to the front door, and I'm like holding it as I'm hearing noises right on the other side of it. And all of a sudden the door bursts open and my parents walk into me holding a bat. Like they walked in and they're like, "Austin, what's happening? Like, are you okay?" And I had to like explain to them like, "No, I'm not okay. I'm freaking out right now. I'm so scared right now. You see that movie, it stayed with me. It stayed with me, and it started affecting me in ways that I really didn't even notice at the time." And what happened is as I went on from that moment is I began to kind of watch more movies and watch more scary movies, and because my dad was like, well, some of them aren't that bad, it's fine. And not like anything super scary or super bad, right? But I began to watch more things, and I began to lie to my parents more and start watching these movies. That as the time went on, what happened is I began to kind of grow numb to the idea of these movies. And before long, they really didn't affect me at all. You see, in our life, there's things that we do that affect us. There's things that we do that change the way that we think, that change the way that we proceed through our life. And if we continue to do them, man, it will cost us that kind of emotion. It will cost us that fear. It will cost us that mindset that says, you know what, maybe I shouldn't be doing this. Maybe I shouldn't be a part of this. Man, maybe I should be scared of this stuff. And before long, we can fall into this mindset of like, it's not that big of a deal. The more I watched these movies, the more I felt comfortable. The more I felt like less of who I was created to be. I found that, man, no longer did I really care what I watched or how I watched it, but nothing affected me anymore. I started changing who I was. I began to put on a mask and a cover-up of what I was truly feeling on the inside and started changing my emotions. You see, I believe we all put ourselves in certain situations where we begin to mask our feelings, we begin to mask our emotions because things grow numb to us. Have you ever gotten to a place where things no longer affect you? Where things no longer have the impact that maybe they once did? You see, all throughout the series, we've invited leaders to share. And actually, in reality, all these leaders have kind of came to me and they said, man, I have this story. This is what's been going on in my life, and I feel like I need to share it. And it's kind of lined up perfectly. And so I love how God works. It wasn't necessarily my goal through this series to have leaders share, but I love how God works, and he has people step up and step out to be willing to share. And so tonight we have one of our leaders coming to share his testimony. Donnie, if you want to start coming up, give it up for Donnie. And he's going to share his testimony tonight about how God kind of walked through this idea with him and kind of how his journey of his relationship with Jesus all came to be. And so as he brings the chair, it's this one right here. Yes. Don't be like Parker and search behind the piano.
Just be weird and just kind
Parker's not here tonight, so we can
He's not, yeah,
in front of him, right?
Just bash on him.
Don't tell him. All right. Cool. So Donnie, why don't you just start off and introduce yourself real quick, let people know kind of, obviously they know your name is Donnie, but let them know what you're interested in, what your hobbies are, and maybe whatever you want to say about you.
Okay, well, hi, I'm Donnie.
Hi, Donnie.
Fun fact, people get this wrong all the time, but my name is actually not Donnie, that's just my nickname.
It's Donald.
It's not.
Donovan.
People get that weird, it's Donovan.
Donovan.
And Scotty was the one who was like, Donald. I'm like, why do you keep calling me that? Like, does that have to do with Trump? We're not talking politics, what's happening? And he's like, no, it's your first name. I'm like, no.
Your name is not Donald.
It's Donovan.
Donovan.
So I just go by Donnie, but I like drumming, obviously. I dropped a few sticks.
Did you tonight?
I did.
I didn't notice.
Did you see on Sunday?
I did. Only the drummers.
Only the drummers noticed it. I recovered. No,
Josh in the back is like, I noticed.
Josh saw. But yeah, I play drums, and I like drawing comic books. That's what I want to do. So I draw comic books. Yeah.
At first I heard I draw in comic books. I was like, well,
yeah,
just ruin them. It's okay.
Whatever. I take like the priceless old Marvel and just start writing in it.
Yeah,
The first issue of Superman.
Exactly. Ooh, I'd cry. All right, so I have a question. I've been doing like Would You Rather just because I think they're fun, right? It's just kind of an icebreaker to get everybody to get to know you, us to get to know them, whatever. So if you had a choice and you could see 10 minutes in the future, as many times as you want to, or you could see 150 years into the future, which one would you choose and why?
You really like putting me on the spot there.
No, I didn't tell you that question.
I'd say 150 years in the future.
150 years?
Yeah, I think it's interesting.
You'd be dead.
You don't obviously.
I know, that's what I'm saying.
But that's what I want to see. Like I want to see where. Sorry to make.
What happens after you die?
Yeah, well after I die and what happens to my kids and the country and just what comes out. And
how about you guys? Would you rather see 10 minutes into the future? Make some noise.
Why 10?
Because
You know what's gonna happen
years.
10 minutes in the future? I'm gonna be talking.
What?
150.
150? See, I would choose 10 minutes myself. Wait, 150 makes some noise. Okay, 10 minutes makes some noise. 150? Pretty even. I would choose 10 minutes, I think, myself, just because I could constantly do it, so I could constantly just do it a little bit, like, snip it.
Okay.
Be like, you know what, like, how's traffic today? I'm not taking that road.
Traffic in Grand Junction?
No, yeah, traffic in Grand Junction. I don't know, like, hey, who's going to win that game? Bet on the game, Like, 150 years, I'm dead. Like, it doesn't matter to me. Like, it matters to my kid. Yes, that's important, but, like...
Oh, whatever.
Oh, yeah, cool. So you kind of shared your testimony with me a little bit. Why don't you start and kind of just let us know kind of your upbringing, the household you were raised in, and how you walked in your relationship with Jesus.
What? Okay, yeah, so it's my sister. Hi, Annie.
Yeah.
She's wearing a shirt that says Austin on it. Is it Austin on it? Oh,
yeah,
there you go.
Keep Austin weird.
So I grew up in a Christian household, obviously. But, we're talking about this thing, apathy, and it said lukewarm Christianity. That's something that I felt came up. My mom was very Christian, grew up in the Pentecostal movement when AG was really big in the 80s. And my dad really did it. Like, he believes in God, but he's Sunday Christian without actually going to church on Sunday. So, great family. my dad and mom were great. I grew up on a healthy dose of rock and roll, Christian, country, jazz, just, like, I play traditional.
Jazz.
Jazz. But, so I had a nice upbringing, when I was a happy kid, and I can make fun of a lot of that, but, it happens, so, yeah.
Cool. So you kind of mentioned this idea of lukewarm. You shared with me that there's a season in your life where you kind of grew lukewarm in your relationship, in your walk with Jesus. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so like I said, I was Christian. I grew up Christian, but I was like 9. I didn't understand, like, oh, I'm just Christians, whatever. So that mentality stuck with me until I was like 16, and then kind of still did until I was 18. But so I really comfortable.
I thought you were just gonna stand up.
Yeah. So no. Anyways, but
listen, if you know Donnie, I would have put that past him. That's why I was like, he's going for it.
Known me for like 3 months already.
I know you enough.
I stood up while we were playing. One of the girls was like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "I'm having a moment." Jesus. Anyways, but so yeah, it was hard. So so my parents divorced when I was in 3rd grade, and that really threw my world into a tizzy because I didn't understand it. I mean, most kids don't when they're that age. So we went from living with my parents, having just a fun time. I had my room, could play with my toys, whatever, to all of a sudden I only see my dad on the weekend, and I'm living with my granddad and my mom, and there's just things going on. I didn't understand it. So that kind of stuck with me, and if you met my dad, and he has, he can be he's very self-aware, and that's where I'm very self-aware as well. So he's very he'll talk to you, and if he's mad, it's just like he doesn't care about your feelings. It's more about, is he right? So we kind of push that. Loving guy, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying he's not. It's just that's something that's kind of stuck with me. And so I grew up this way, and I really didn't understand it. I'm like, well, I didn't understand it. I was 9 and going on 10. I was like, well, God, why are my parents divorced? Like, I didn't understand it. And I was too young to understand why, and it just didn't make any sense to me. So I went on with life, and it just, go to church regularly and just whatever. And I got into middle school, and I believed in Jesus, of course, but I hadn't realized at the time, I had not accepted him in my life. So I had this very legalistic point of view where I thought, all right, cool, if you're gay, you're going to hell. If you're lesbian, you're going to hell. All this other stuff you can name. I just did not have a loving point of view. That person's gay? Cool, stay away. I don't want to be near that person. So I had this just legalistic view, but at the same time, I was still sinning and living just this one foot in Jesus town and the other foot in the world. And that stuck with me when I went into high school. And, I fell with the wrong crowd and the wrong girls and all this stuff. So I would go to youth group and I would go to church. I'd be there. And I would just kind of stand there and just be like, I want to sit down. I don't want to be here right now. It's Sunday. I had a show yesterday. I was in band. And my mom forced me to go to youth group. And it was hard. So I would go. The best way I could describe it is going through the motions. I didn't understand it. And we had a thing in California called youth convention, and it's almost like winter retreat, but it's like camp, but it's a weekend, and we would go stay in these hotels for a weekend and go to a convention, have a different speaker. We had someone from Bethel, Elevation, some other churches in California. Cool event. First time I went, cool, it was awesome. I was around 15 or 16, and I remember the date exactly. It was the 19th of February, and we're standing there, and I think it was the last night before Sunday, so it was Saturday night, and I don't remember what the preacher was preaching, I remember what the message was, I don't remember the music, I just remember God, I kept feeling this pushing on my back consistently. So, I'm like, all right, God, I guess I'm going up. So I walked up, and some leaders from our church came around me, and we're praying. For the first time really ever, I had this really real experience with God. I'm like, oh my God, this is awesome. I totally give my life to you. This is what I want to do. Instantly on Monday, I went back to my old habits. But see, I went back with this mentality of like, well, I feel really guilty now. I'm doing all this stuff. I'm getting with the wrong crowd, wrong girls. And it was just back and forth. And it stuck with me. And I would try to get better and try to get better. And I would look at our leaders or kids my age. I'm like, well, their walk is way better than mine. They can read the Bible. I can barely read a sentence and be like, just get out. So it got to, it's funny. I'm not even kidding. So it just went on and on. I still kind of had this legalistic view, and it didn't help that the church I was going to slowly was getting lukewarm and progressive, and I didn't realize that. So I remember I switched high schools because the high school was at just no bueno. This was not good. So I'm going to the second high school, great, having a good time. I'm starting to realize, like, hey, I have an opportunity to really, change who I am, and I can really follow Christ. So things got better. I acted a lot differently, but I still had the same tendencies, go with the wrong crowd, wrong girls, cuss, swear, whatever. I said GD a lot. And so go through high school, graduate, still having these issues with my mom and dad, which is cool because my mom and dad, you would think a divorced couple would never talk to each other again. Never went to court, had a very simple understanding. You get them on the weekends, and when you can, I'll take them the rest of the time. Easy peasy, nothing. Like, they can sit in a room and laugh and talk and not argue, which is great. Like, that's a total God thing. So I'm going to high school, and I finally graduate, and I'm leaving, and I still kind of have the same thing, but now I'm just at home. So instead of just being with people, I'm having this very, like, oh man, I'm bored, And if when you're bored, sin starts to seep in and you get these really bad tendencies. I'm not going to go into detail, but it just happens. I'm still talking to the wrong people. I'm still doing the things I'm not supposed to be. Now I'm home, so I'm more comfortable with it. Started going to college when I was 18, second semester, and one night I'm home, and Mom's like, you know what? Let's watch a documentary. I'm like, okay. She's like, we're going to watch Holy Spirit by Bethel. And I know a lot of people don't like Bethel, and a lot of people don't like Todd White. If you don't like him, just give it a second. Let me finish my story and keep your opinions. So we're watching it, and I'm like, okay, cool. I've seen this movie before. It's fun. Sorry, this is a really long story. I just looked at the time. But
like, yeah, you got 2 minutes.
Yeah, come on. So I'm sitting there and I'm watching this, and it's these people from Bethel, and they're in Salt Lake City, which a lot of people know. It's a very big bastion of Mormonism and very legalistic, that religion. Could never go on a mission after I was 18. I wanted to stay home. So we're sitting there watching this, and they showed this really cool dynamic where and it's a real thing. It wasn't like it was staged. There's this Presbyterian minister standing in front of the really big Mormon temples, and he's yelling things like, you're going to go to hell because you believe in another book. And on the other side, there's these 2 guys from Bethel, and there's this kid walking, and goes, hey, can we pray for you? Like, we see you walking with a limp. Is there something we can pray for you? And they're praying for him. I'm like, I didn't get it. So we're watching it, and they're showing some more stuff like that. And Todd White comes on. And I'm like, well, this is weird. This guy's wearing like those weird foot shoes and dreads. I'm like, that's not Christian. It's true. So I'm watching this, and I'm like, this is weird. This guy just loved me. And it was the weirdest thing. I'm like, what? This guy's just randomly walking up to people and saying, hey, can I pray for you? And that touched me so deeply. And it was cool because, I totally missed this and I meant to, but before this, I had gotten a word from a friend of ours saying, audibly, she heard God say, Donovan, that's loud, my bad. Donovan, stop rebelling against me. If you stop rebelling against me, you will have a Todd White-like ministry. I didn't understand what that meant because I knew it was called to be to serve, but I didn't know what that meant. I thought it was just standing on a podium. So cool, I'll do that. But I still had my old ways. So I saw this, and I was like, wait, am I supposed to be like Todd White? Do I have to wear dreads and have foot shoes? Like, I didn't get... Now that you said it. So I didn't get that, but I'm watching this, and I'm having this real encounter with God in my living room, watching the TV, and God's like, this is what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about that you have to stand on a stage and preach. Just love on people. You have a heart for people. Go love on people. So that week, and it was the week right before COVID hit, so it was already there. It was there, and it was right before, and every day leading up to that Thursday, I tried to find one person to pray over. And then COVID hit, and things got harder and harder. But at that moment, I said, you know what? No, this is what I'm doing. I'm going to live my life for Jesus, and this is how it is.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Give it for Donnie. Listen, Donnie said a lot of stuff that I feel like we can all relate to. That there's different things that probably stuck out to you, whether it's how you feel about church, whether it's how you feel about your relationship with Jesus, whatever it might be. I want to read real quick, Genesis chapter 3, verses 1 through 10. The story is found at the very beginning of the Bible, very first book of the Bible. In it is when God created the heavens and earth. He created Adam and Eve. They're walking around the garden, and he gives them one rule. What's that one rule? Don't eat the fruit, right? They have full access to God. They have full unity with God. And he says one thing, don't eat the fruit. We find in Genesis chapter 3, verses 1 through 10, it says, the serpent and shrewdness of the wild animals was the shrewdest of the wild animals the Lord God had made. One day he asked the woman, did God really say that you must not eat the fruit? You see, the enemy loves to come in and begin to question what God's told you. Did he really say don't eat from any of the trees in the garden, or from that tree in the garden? Of course we may eat the fruit of the trees in the garden, the woman replied. It's only the fruit of that tree in the middle of the garden that we are not allowed to eat. God said we must not eat even or touch it, or else we die. You won't die, the serpent replied to the woman. God knows that your eyes will be open as soon as you eat it, and you will be like God, knowing what is good and evil. The woman was convinced. She saw the tree was beautiful, and its fruit looked delicious. She wanted wisdom that it would give her, and so she took some of the fruit and ate it. And then she gave some of it to her husband, who ate it as well. At that moment, their eyes were open, and they suddenly felt shame of their nakedness. They sewed fig leaves together to cover themselves. When the cool evening breeze was blowing, a man and his wife heard the Lord calling, the Lord walking in the garden, so they hid from him. The Lord God called out, "Where are you?" He replied, "I heard you walking in the garden, so I hid because I was afraid I was naked." Listen, the reality is in our life, what happens is God gives us a command. The enemy loves to come in and begin to change that command. Shame causes us to hide from God. Shame causes us to hide who we were created to be. You see, the sin that they committed was disobeying God, and the outcome of it was they now began to feel ashamed of who they were. You see, like I told you at the beginning, man, the more I watched scary movies, the more I became desensitized to it. The same thing goes with our sin. The more you start acting a part of it and listening to that voice of the enemy to say, do it, it's fine, it's not that big of a deal, the more you start to become desensitized to these emotions. Tonight, the emotion that I'm talking about is this idea of apathy. It's the state of no emotion at all, the state of feeling nothingness, of feeling like there's really no point of any of it. Apathy is the lack of feeling or the reduction of interest or concern in our life. You see, I believe that apathy is actually the opposite of love. You see, hate, at least there's emotion there. Love is full of emotion. It's full of life. Apathy is full of nothingness. And so we can all, if we're not careful, fall into seasons where we become apathetic. We can get apathetic about our relationships between maybe our parents or our classmates. We can get apathetic about our job that we might have or school. We can get apathetic about our grades, sports, hobbies, or even church. And if we're not careful, what can happen is we can fall into this mindset because we don't necessarily really love to do it. We're kind of just going through the motions that we begin to hide who we really are. If we're not careful, we begin to cut corners and listen to the words that the enemy says and says, did God really tell you you're supposed to do that? Did God really speak that over you? Did God really put that desire in your heart? We begin to cut corners off of our life of what God's plan was for us. And as a result, we begin to grow apathetic towards things in our life. There's a story in John chapter 5. I'm going to begin to close with this. So, Piano, you want to come up? John chapter 5, there's a story where Jesus in this time is walking through, and there's a pool in a town called Bethesda. There's all these people there, and it said that anytime the water swelled, the people would jump in and people would be healed. The people who first got in would be healed. So Jesus comes along, and there's a paralyzed man sitting there. And what happens is the water begins to swell, people begin to jump in, people begin to get healed. And this conversation takes place, and this interaction takes place where the paralyzed man begins to think and begins to express to Jesus, man, I've been sitting here for 38 years. I've been sitting in this exact place for 38 years. People surrounding me who are sick, who are hurting, who are broken. We're all here together. The thing I found in life is apathy kind of finds apathy. It befriends one another. When you find people who are kind of hurting the same way as you kind of join together. But oftentimes it's not always in the most positive way. You see, they were only looking out for themselves in this moment, trying to be the first one in, the first one to get there. And for 38 years, what happened is this man was in the right place, but he didn't have a means to get in the water. You see, I think for some of you tonight, man, you find yourself in the right place, but you don't have the means to get in the water. What's happened is your apathy, your lack of emotion has caused you to grow stale in your relationship with God. It's caused you to grow stale in your relationship with your family. It's caused you to grow stale in the relationships that you have with your friends. You no longer feel ashamed or convicted of your sin that you're committing, and instead, man, you're just like, you know what? It is who I am. Some of you find yourself in a moment here tonight where you are paralyzed and you can't move forward because for so long you've been doing the same thing over and over that you've grown numb to it. Now, I'm accident prone, and growing up I've injured myself quite a bit. But one of the things that I hate more than anything, I don't mind doctors too much because I've been there enough. I hate the dentist. Anybody else hate the dentist? Yes, they're the worst. If your parents are a dental person in here, I apologize. But dentists are the worst. I had to go in one time and I had to get my gums numbed and then kind of this surgery on my teeth. I don't even know what it is. I hate it so much I blocked it out. But I had to go in for this surgery, and what happened is, like, it took place, they numbed my mouth, and I left. They told me, hey, you're going to be sore for the next couple days, so just be careful. Well, I left, and I was like, you know what, I'm not that sore, it's fine. So I began to eat what I want, do what I want, live how I want, act like I want, without any fear in the world. Well, before long, that numbing agent disappeared. And the thing that they'd done to fix it, I began to injure again. Because I was careless, I began to injure myself more. You see, the same thing is true for our life. I believe some of us in here tonight, man, you find yourself in a state where you're numb. Where there's an injury that God's began to work on, He's began to work in your life through, and you find yourself numb. And what's happened is you have a choice. Man, do you say, you know what, I'm numb to this, so I'm just going to continue to do what I want anyway? Or do you say, you know what, one day that numbness is going to go away and it's going to cause me a whole lot more pain. So instead, I'm going to decide today to begin to heal. I'm going to decide today to begin to press forward in my relationship with Jesus rather than just live how I want to. You see, apathy is a dangerous place to be because when you're numb, you don't know how exactly you're feeling. You can't put a description on your emotions. Can I get 4 people to come up here? 4 people. Just come on up. 4 students. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, right here, 4. Cool. Gonna put this on. Perfect. Cool. You see, what happens in life, if you guys want to stand kind of side by side right here, and you know who you are real quick. Cool. Cool. See, what happens in life is oftentimes when we're apathetic, we begin to mask our emotions. We begin to mask who we are, how we're feeling, what we're going through, because we don't really know how we're feeling. And so when we're at home, we put on this mask of saying, you know what, I'm fine, everything's good. Man, I'm going to listen to my parents because I have to. I'm gonna do life with them because I have to, but like I really don't know who I am. So you're acting one way at home. Then you get to school, you get around your friends, you begin to talk like them, you begin to act like them, you're on your sports teams, you're in those communities, you begin to kind of just live and put a mask on when you're at school, and that becomes your identity in that moment. And then you come to church, and you're here at church, and the worship songs are playing, and the band's up on stage, and you have all these emotions, and so you're like, man, I need to be in this mindset, I need to be in this environment. So you begin to put on the church mask and act like, man, like you got your life together, like everything's going well. You got to pretend like you don't have any sin in your life. And what happens is we go back and forth between our home life, our school life, our church life, our home life, our school life, our church life, constantly switching those masks, constantly changing who we are, constantly changing our emotions. And if we aren't careful, what happens between the 3 of these, and once was a lot of emotion, now becomes apathy. And so apathy begins to take on the mask of everybody. Can you put that on? How's that? Very, very weird, right? You see, a lot of times in our life, what happens is we are comfortable wearing one mask. We jump back and forth between them, but the reality is they all begin to pile up. They all began to kind of pile up in our life because of this emotion of apathy, of us not really caring anymore. We begin to take on all these different identities, going through life, bouncing back and forth, until we really don't know who we are anymore. You see, what I believe God wants for us tonight is I believe He wants us to begin to take off the mask. He wants us to embrace who we were created to be. He wants us to become who we were created to be. He doesn't want us to be a different person at home, a different person at school, a different person at church. But He wants us to make the decision that says, you know what? I'm going to put Him in the center. I'm going to put Him at the center of my walk, of my faith, of my life. Can we give it up for them? You guys can sit down real quick. Some of you tonight, you're in the right place. You're in the exact place that is needed for the miracle. The waters are stirring right now, and you're looking at your situation. You're saying, I just don't know how I'm going to get in. I can't walk. I can't move. I can't step forward. And tonight, I don't know how I'm going to continue. Listen, let me tell you how this story ends. Jesus comes along. He sees this man. He looks at him. He talks to him, and he says, listen, yeah, those waters are great, but I'm greater. Those waters are healing me because I'm healing. And so I'm going to heal you today. Jesus wants to step into your situation. He wants to step into your environment. He wants to step into your hurts. He wants to step into your brokenness. He wants to step into all those places that you don't want anybody else to see, those masks that you've been covering up, because you feel like if you admit, man, that you're hurting, it's a sign of weakness. Those hurts that you're covering up because you feel like nobody's going to understand. He wants to step into those situations, and He says, you know what? I forgive you. I love you. I care for you. He says to the paralyzed man, stand up, take your mat, and go. And in that day, the paralyzed man was healed, and he left. Same thing can happen for you. Jesus has the power to heal. He has the power to come in, to change, and to restore. I believe some of us, man, for so long we've been living with our mind in pieces that we don't know who we are. That we don't know who we are, who we were created to be. And tonight, God wants to remind you of your identity. He wants to remind you of what He's spoken over you. He wants to remind you of the gifts and the abilities that maybe you've given up on, that He wants to use. He wants you to live with peace of mind today. So with no one looking around, every head bowed, every eye closed, I'm going to close like this. If you're here, and tonight you would say, you know what? For so long I've become numb to life. I become numb to my situation. And it's because of that I've been just making decisions just out of habit. Out of, you know what, like, I can't feel it, so it doesn't affect me. And tonight you would say, you know what, no longer will I allow numbness to be the reason for my actions, but instead I want Jesus to be the reason and the control how I live. Listen, maybe somebody in here, man, there's been something you've been struggling with for a really long time and you've never told anybody about it. There's an issue that you have kept to yourself, that you've been fighting alone because you feel like nobody is going to understand. And what's happened is you become numb to the idea of it. And so you are just going in after in after in and partaking in this action. You're coming to church, you're putting on the church mask. You're going to school, you're putting on the school mask. You're going to your home life and around your parents, you're putting on that mask. But in the reality, you're hurting on the inside because of this thing that's just been eating at you. Listen, tonight is the moment for freedom. Tonight is the moment for freedom. It's to begin to walk in freedom. So if that's you, and man, you've just been continuing to go through the motions because of the lack of feeling. With no one looking around, every head bowed, every eye closed, would you raise your hand real quick? Tonight you say, you know what, I'm tired of doing that. I'm ready to live fully for Jesus. Yes, thank you. Thank you. Here's what I'm going to ask you to do. Just a moment, I'm going to pray. And after I pray, I'm going to ask you to respond in your own way. If that's turning around in your chair, that's turning around in your chair and praying there. If that's coming up here to the altar, it's coming up here to the altar. But here's what I believe. I believe there's a power in your response, of how you respond in these moments. You can say, you know what? I'm okay with it. I'm just going to leave. But man, there's something powerful about standing up and saying, you know what? I need help. And so our leaders are going to make themselves available. You guys don't have to come here right now. But they're going to make themselves available afterwards to talk, to pray over you. But listen, I believe God wants to restore some emotion in your life tonight. You see, apathy, like I said, is the opposite of love. It's the opposite of joy. It's the opposite of peace. It's the thing that robs you of all hope. And he wants to restore those to you this evening. So Lord, I pray right now over every student, God, over every leader in this room. God, I thank you that you have the ability to heal. God, not only that you have the ability to heal and restore, but God, that you want to. God, that right now in this moment, you've walked across our path. God, you've came into this situation, and God, you see the need. God, you saw all those hands that went up just a second ago. God, I pray right now for students who are hurting. God, who are searching. God, I pray that you would begin to speak to them. God, that right now, even in this moment, God, you would begin to restore joy where there has joy been robbed. God, you would begin to restore peace. God, you would begin to restore comfort. God, you would begin to restore life into these students. God, that what the enemy intended to steal, kill, and destroy, God, it says in your word that you come to bring life and life to the full. That's your desire for us. God, I pray right now over students in this room, God, who have been living multiple lives, who have been putting on the mask of wherever they're at. God, I pray for a unity in their spirit. God, that they know who they are, of who they were created to be. That the enemy would not come in to twist or pervert anything, but God, that he would come in and that you would come in and restore our identity. God, that the things that have been spoken over these students, God, he would not begin to question, God, but we would be reminded of the things that you have for us. God, it says that the enemy came in, he began to question Adam and Eve. And God, I know right now he's beginning to question in these students' hearts of, do you really need to respond? Do you really need to go for it? Do you really need to open up about this thing? And the answer is yes. There is power in confession. There's power in seeking Jesus, and he wants to bring unity tonight. So Lord, I pray for a boldness. God, I pray for a return of love, of joy, of peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, self-control. God, that as your spirit begins to work in this place, God, we would become so in love with you. God, that we would make you the center of all that we do. God, that it doesn't matter what the enemy comes against us with, that we would stand firm. So students, I invite you, come to the front, turn around in your chairs, press into God tonight.